Now that is how you end a complicated 40-year story. Hey there guys, and welcome back to Dino Reacts. So guys, I got done watching The Rise of Skywalker last night. Now guys, I'm going to jump on here and giving you guys my review of the movie. I'll admit this is a quick review guys, it's not going to have any spoilers in here, and it's pretty much just my thoughts since watching it last night. But guys, I'm happy to say this one definitely saves the current trilogy. And I will say myself, I actually liked this one a lot more than the last two. For me, The Force Awakens just kind of felt like a retread of A New Hope, and The Last Jedi just went way out of sight. Where The Rise of Skywalker succeeds, it brings those tones from the previous Star Wars movies all together. So we get Rey, Finn and Poe, they have a lot of scenes together in this. And I do think that's one of the strengths of Star Wars. When you have these characters are pretty beloved by fans and they're generally together, they work better as a team. I will admit guys, the first maybe third of this movie is quite choppy. It's very fast paced. The transitions themselves kind of from scene to scene are way too quick, and even the dialogue, some characters maybe have a line of dialogue with the early scenes in the movie. So the first half of this movie, it does definitely have a lot of course correcting because of The Last Jedi. And I'll admit guys, when I was watching it, there were a lot of moments and just plot points that were kind of going all over the place. They do a good job at fixing it at the same time. For the most part, it works. Even the scenes with Princess Leia in there, they kind of push her into different scenes, and it does help. You know, you kind of see Rey training at certain points, so it gets rid of that kind of Mary Sue character everyone sees Rey as. Speaking of Rey, I really liked her character in this one. In The Force Awakens, I absolutely loved her character and I wanted to see more of her. With The Last Jedi, I didn't enjoy her as much. In this one though, she's right back to that Force Awakens type character, but they also give her a really good story arc. So you kind of see her going through these struggles, you know, of who she is and where she comes from. Again, going back to that Force Awakens storyline, but at the same time struggling with the good side of the Force and the dark side. Now with this movie, it does sometimes feel like there's a lot of movies pushed into one, but again, a lot of this movie is course correcting. You have to appreciate that from J.J. Abrams. And still, one of the most interesting concepts of this new trilogy is the relationship between Rey and Kylo Ren. So both characters, you know, in their own story arcs are kind of struggling with the good side and the bad side of the Force, but at the same time they clearly can see there's this connection between both of them, and that pretty much festers throughout the entire movie. So it builds and builds and builds right up to the climax of the movie with some really emotional scenes. Meanwhile, on the sidelines we still have Finn, who's clearly in love with Rey. Now what I will say guys with Finn is he is a little underdeveloped again in this one. Now he does have a lot more to do than The Last Jedi. I honestly think the character was wasted in that movie. In this one he has a lot more to do. You know, he has a good friendship there with Poe, and that's the same with Rey. All three characters have a great friendship. For me, that was something that was missing in the last movie. We didn't see enough of them together. Finn is also kind of the level-headed one out of the group. So both Poe and Rey, they love to kind of jump into danger. They haven't really learned from their mistakes in the last movie. Whereas Finn in this one, he is kind of the point of reason. You know, he's there to stop them doing really silly, stupid stuff. They also explore a little bit, you know, his stormtrooper past, which I liked just to see kind of where that came about. They had in The Force Awakens and they just kind of forgot about it after that. So I like that with him. He does get more developed definitely, but just overall I do think they could have done a little bit more. As for Poe, he goes right back to being that kind of rogue that we got in The Force Awakens, which was great to see. You know, he had that kind of swagger and that comedy factor back there again. So there is a new character in this movie called Zuri, who he kind of has an ex-romance, I suppose, with, and it just brings that old-fashioned Poe back. What I didn't like is he doesn't seem to have learned from his mistakes in the past movie. Now, I don't know if that was intentional or not, but he still kind of makes these mistakes where he just jumps into danger. As for the original cast, General Leia, for me guys, was used perfectly in this movie. I honestly wasn't expecting how much they used her in this, and especially kind of fixed the wrongs of the last film. So she does a lot of the training with Rey just to kind of push her to be this brilliant Jedi. Now, as I said already guys, a lot of people have issues with Rey being this kind of Mary Sue type character that's way too powerful. Even though when I watch Star Wars, I've always thought it of Luke, that he's gone a couple days training and suddenly he's this great Jedi. But talking about Rey, she does actually get trained in this one by Princess Leia, and it does kind of defeat that Mary Sue issue that people have had. Now they are using archive footage of Carrie Fisher in this movie, and at times you can definitely tell that. Look, I didn't mind that too much, you know, they were kind of up against the wall with that factor of it, but I like how they included her. I like the lines that she had in this movie, and you couldn't really tell that, you know, she had passed away. It was as if she was really part of this movie. I also really enjoyed the droids in this movie, particularly C-3PO. For me, in the last movie, he didn't really get enough to do. In this one, he gets absolutely loads and he's hilarious. I've always been a big fan of C-3PO. A lot of people find him annoying, but I've always kind of found him the heart of Star Wars. You know, the humor is there again. He is very silly, he's very over the top, and he's everything you want from Star Wars. As for BB-8 and R2-D2, they don't get a lot to do in this movie, which I was quite disappointed with. I definitely thought BB-8 would have a lot more to do since he's this kind of new droid. Speaking of new droids, we do get also a new little guy in this movie, and he's a good little comedy factor to it. Again, he doesn't have much to do, but there's a lot going on in this movie, so you kind of have to forgive that. This movie, honestly, it does feel like 2 or 3 movies in one. We also do get a lot of returning characters, one being Lando, but also some little surprise cameos in there as well. I'm not going to give much of that away, guys. I want you to go in open-minded, see the movie and be as surprised as I was. Another thing I loved with this movie were the visuals and just the CGI in general. So we went to totally different worlds in this movie, and just like what you want in a Star Wars movie, they were colourful worlds with really interesting and fun characters. There's a whole host of new characters in this movie and I loved them. Most of the little new characters were fun little characters. There was one guy kind of operating at one point on C-3PO, and he is a standout character in this movie. Most of the cinema could not stop laughing at him. Again, the last movie looked amazing as well, so I'm kind of happy they kept that going with this one. But this one, again, it just feels more like a Star Wars movie. You know, we're on ships, we're in deserts, we're in kind of unknown colourful lands. That's what I want out of Star Wars, and it's not taken too seriously. You know, again, you get that message of hope with this movie, and you go on an adventure to many different lands. Now, looking at the dark side of the Force, we have Kylo Ren, who again gives a great performance by Adam Driver. He's definitely one of the standouts in this movie and this whole trilogy. His story arc, again, you know, it comes full circle in this, but it's fun to just watch his struggles on screen. I will say as well, anytime he's on screen, he really raises the emotional stakes of this movie. Watching his kind of struggle with the dark side and the light side of the Force is one of the best things, again, in this movie, and that's kind of been a theme throughout this entire trilogy. Now, guys, one person I have not really mentioned is Palpatine. Yes, he's in this movie. Yes, we've known this for a year, so nobody should be surprised with this, but I'm not going to give too much away about his character because I want you to go see it and enjoy that for yourselves. Now, I've seen some people online kind of say, you know, throwing Palpatine in there was a last minute effort to kind of fix the wrongs of the last movie. Yes, it probably was, but the thing is, people have had a year and a half to get used to that fact. So me going into it, I didn't really care about that. I remember when the trailers came out and I didn't like that they just brought him back to please the fans who were getting angry about the last movie. Now, watching it though, I like how they fit him in. It works really, really well. And again, it kind of harkens back to all 9 movies and kind of closes the whole thing up in a really nice bow. What I did like about having Palpatine in this though is it does kind of bring the whole thing full circle. So it goes right back to that original movie and includes all 9 in it. You get that with this movie. There are a lot of callbacks, there are a lot of little treats for fans of all 9 movies. Palpatine is one of those treats. You know, when he's on screen, he is Palpatine. Ian McDiarmid cannot go wrong with that character. And again, seeing him kind of develop in this movie, he doesn't have a lot to do, I will say that, but when he's on screen, when he's doing what he does best, he exceeds at it. Now, as I said, guys, there are also a lot of new characters in this movie. I'm not really going to go into too much of them. I will just say I loved all the new characters. Each of them, they were funny or they were charming in their own ways, and they just felt like classic Star Wars. A lot of them were done with just practical effects, which I've always loved with Star Wars, and you can see that in the movie. They do look more like puppeteers and things like that, but again, it just gives a warmth to this movie that you didn't get with The Last Jedi. I honestly thought the last movie was a little colder, it was definitely darker. This one, it feels a lot more like the Return of the Jedi. It's a lot more cuddlier, cozier, and just fun to see on screen. But again guys, I definitely love this movie and I'll probably go see it again. Maybe over time my opinion will change, but I do know coming out of this movie, I felt a lot more hopeful for Star Wars than coming out of the last one. This one, it does bring back a lot of old characters, there's a lot of cameos there, and there's just a lot more warmth to the movie. Now the whole thing, it does get wrapped up really well. I honestly thought going in they weren't going to be able to wrap it up, but they do a great job on it. The final scene in that for me guys is such a great scene. I'm not going to give away what it is, but I guarantee you, you will enjoy it if you love Star Wars. But guys, that is just my thoughts on Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker. I've definitely really enjoyed the movie and it's for sure my favourite in this current trilogy. But what did you think of the movie? Let me know in the comments below. Even if you hated the movie, you can let me know what you hated about it. And if you loved it, of course, let me know what you loved about it. As always guys, subscribe to the channel just so you don't miss another video. And until next time, Heidi ho.